name is Noel Bailey. I'm a potter, and I live in Waitsfield, Vermont. I make basically bowls, plates, mugs, cups, vases, pitchers, a lot of what I think are quintessential pottery items. Most of my work starts on the potter's wheel, and it's after the potter's wheel that I tend to give my pieces more gesture and movement, and that's where a lot of the sculpting sort of starts. What I love about making functional ware is the interaction that happens between the maker and the user and the piece. Cups, for one, are incredibly intimate, something you hold near your lips, and being able to see the detail that's involved in the piece. There's so many design features that are from like a tapered lip rim that helps the liquid like come into your lips, into your mouth without dribbling down your face. And two, I think about like the angle of how a person, like men tend to hold a mug with a very straight arm and bend at the shoulder, where females tend to bend at the wrist, and it's a little bit more of this kind of turn. I'm drawn to work that's quiet. I want the work to speak softly and not be loud or brash, and something that kind of over time can reveal itself. Details that make you want to turn the piece over and see what's on the bottom, and there's places where I'll cut all the way through the wall of a mug, for example, and then I'll put in clear glaze in there. And it lets light kind of come through, and depending on the time of day, the work looks very different. I have this piece of paper hanging up in my studio. It's a page like on the back of an insurance contract, and it says, "This page intentionally left blank." And that's to remind me to see how little I can add, and to try to keep things quiet, but rich in that kind of quiet and that solitude there. I was working at this clay center in Colorado, and I had been working there for a couple summers. I was making some work that was, technically it was very sound, and I was feeling pretty good about it, the pots that I was making. And I had this one particular mug that I thought just nailed it. I thought the glaze was just right, and the walls were thin and everything. And so I went up to this artist and I said, "So what do you think about this mug here?" And he looked at it and he said, "Well, it's a nice mug, but there's nothing about that mug that tells me about who you are." And that really stuck with me and got me to think a lot more about, well, what is unique about me, and what can I make that'll be different than everything out there, and that will express the things that I'm interested in. I love to ice climb. I get to get up close and play around in these really cool ice formations. And I like how it sort of speaks to what it is on, but it changes it slightly. So you might have this really rough rock, but it has some certain curves to it, and that ice will relate to those curves. Even just snow that falls on my steps outside the studio door, I like seeing how the wind makes them transition from skinny to thicker. I was born and raised in southwest Colorado. We had 40 acres and a canyon in our front yard. And the desert is, while often many people think of it as being devoid of water, it's this place that has been sculpted completely by water and wind. And so I find a lot of those graceful curves that I see in snow and ice also in the desert. Ice is this frozen version of water, and then I think of glazing in the same way. When I bring it up to temperature in the kiln, the glaze starts to melt, and it becomes this material that's somewhat close to water. And then when the kiln cools, it's frozen, and so I think of that in a similar way, but perhaps just on a slightly different time scale. When we moved to Vermont, it was interesting to observe the water staining that happened from Hurricane Irene. There was a barn down in the valley, and the wood had completely changed color where the high watermark was. I started thinking about that as an influence, and would incorporate these horizontal lines into my work. And I would just sort of think about those horizontal lines as being these high water marks. I think a big component of my success in this is that it's a constant challenge, and I don't ever feel like I've gotten there. It's there's so many things that can go wrong with this media that that keep me humble and keep me striving, keep me on my toes.